The big meeting room on Station Alpha was full of noise and worry. Admiral Kyosung stood at the front holding a datapad in his shaking hands. The reports inside were scary, but most of the alien leaders sitting around the table did not believe them. The stories seemed too crazy to be real. A ghost ship that came from nowhere and destroyed entire fleets before disappearing again. Commander Taeho from the Drachnary Empire laughed out loud when he heard the latest report. His blue skin turned darker when he got excited and his forearms moved as he talked. The humans are making up stories, he said loudly. They know they are weak, so they try to scare us with fake tales about magic ships that do not exist. But Captain Haijin knew the truth. She had been fighting in space for 15 years, and she recognized the signs. Every attack happened the same way. First, the enemy would see strange lights on their sensors. Then massive explosions would destroy their ships in seconds. The few survivors always told the same impossible story about a ship that bent space around itself. The tension in the room grew stronger when Ambassador Minho stood up to speak. He was a small man, but his voice carried power when he talked to the Alien Council. Members, the human colonies will no longer accept raids on our people, he said. Clearly, any fleet that attacks human civilians will face consequences. They cannot imagine. General Wu Jin from the Vegan Republic made a rude sound with his mouth. The humans think they can threaten us, he said to his friends. We have been traveling the stars for thousands of years, while they barely learned to leave their home planet. What can these primitive creatures possibly do to us what the aliens did not know was that humans had been working on something special for many years deep underground on Earth in secret labs that few people knew existed. Project Phantom had been building the most advanced warship ever created, the alien leaders thought. It was just a story, but they were very wrong. Captain So Young ran through the corridors of the human command ship carrying urgent news. The latest intelligence reports showed that more alien fleets were gathering near human space. They were planning something big and dangerous. The attacks on human colonies were getting worse each month, and the regular human navy was too small to protect everyone. Admiral Dongwu read the classified message on his personal screen. The words made his blood feel cold. A massive alien armada was forming in the outer systems, preparing for what looked like a final attack on human civilization. The enemy had over 200 warships, including some of the biggest and most powerful vessels in the galaxy. The human defense forces had maybe 30 ships in the area, and most of them were old and not very strong. The aliens had plasma cannons that could melt through the strongest armor and shields that could stop almost any weapon humans had. It seemed like humanity was about to face complete defeat, but there were secrets that even most humans did not know about. In a hidden base far from Earth, technicians worked day and night on systems that pushed the limits of known science. The Phantom warship was not just a rumor or a psychological weapon designed to scare enemies. It was real, and it was almost ready to show the galaxy what humans could really do. Captain Jamin received encrypted orders while his ship patrolled the border zones. The message told him to keep his crew ready for emergency deployment, but gave no details about what they might face. His sensors showed nothing unusual in the empty space around his vessel, but he knew that could change very quickly. The alien fleets were moving with confidence through space toward human territory. Their commanders had studied human military capabilities and decided that victory would be easy. The humans had brave fighters, but their technology was hundreds of years behind the advanced civilizations that ruled the galaxy. Commander Jinho monitored long-range communications from his listening post on the edge of human space. The alien messages he picked up were full of plans for dividing human worlds among the different empires. After the conquest was complete, they talked about human slaves and which planets had the most valuable resources to steal. What made the situation even more dangerous was that the aliens were working together for the first time in centuries. The Drachnary Empire usually fought with the Vegan Republic, and both of them hated the Centauri Alliance. But their shared desire to destroy humanity had brought them into a temporary partnership. General Seok-ho commanded the largest human fleet in the sector, but even he knew the odds were hopeless. His ships were outnumbered 10-1, and the enemy had weapons that could destroy entire planets. The only hope was to delay the aliens long enough for civilians to escape to safer systems. The stories about the Phantom ship had been spreading through the galaxy for months now. Some people said it was as big as a space station with weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. Others claimed it could become invisible or travel through dimensions that normal ships could not enter. Captain Yunji had heard the stories from survivors of alien attacks. They all described the same thing, a ship that appeared from nowhere with hull that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. The weapons it used created explosions that looked like tiny stars being born and dying in seconds. Admiral Hyunsu knew that something big was about to happen. The High Command on Earth had been sending coded messages to coordinates that did not officially exist. Supplies and personnel were being moved to secret locations, and old projects that had been canceled were suddenly getting new funding. The Phantom warship had been in development for over 20 years using technology that came from studying crashed alien vessels and captured enemy equipment. Human scientists had taken the best ideas from dozens of different civilizations and combined them into something completely new. Captain Yujin wondered if the stories could really be true. Part of her hoped they were, because humanity desperately needed a miracle. But another part of her worried about what kind of weapons could be so powerful that even the descriptions sounded impossible to believe. The alien leaders continued to dismiss the Phantom reports as human propaganda designed to make them cautious about attacking. But some of the smarter enemy commanders were starting to worry. The consistency of the witness accounts was troubling, and the damage patterns from the attack suggested weapons far beyond current human technology. Ambassador Seung-min tried one last time to negotiate with the Alien Council, but they refused to listen. The combined fleet was already moving toward human space, and nothing would stop them from carrying out their plan to end human resistance once and for all. Deep in space, something ancient and terrible was waking up. Systems that had waited in darkness for years began to activate, and power flowed through conduits designed to channel forces that could reshape reality itself. The Phantom was real, and it was ready to show the galaxy that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Fleet Admiral Dong-woo was sleeping when the emergency alarm woke him up. The red lights in his cabin flashed as he grabbed the encrypted message that had just arrived. The words on the screen made his heart beat faster. A combined alien armada of over 200 warships was heading toward New Seoul, the most important human colony in the Outer Rim. The message came from deep space reconnaissance drones that had been watching alien fleet movements for weeks. The enemy ships were massive battlecruisers and dreadnoughts from 3 different empires, all working together to destroy humanity once and for all. Their weapons could turn entire planets into burning rocks floating in space. Captain So Young ran through the command station corridors, her boots making loud sounds on the metal floors. She burst into the emergency meeting room, where senior officers were already gathering around the holographic display. The blue light showed the approaching alien fleet as hundreds of red dots moving steadily toward human space. The civilian evacuation from New Seoul was going too slowly. Millions of people lived on the planet, and there were not enough transport ships to move them all to safety in time. Long-range sensors showed the enemy fleet would arrive in less than 18 hours. Most of the civilians would still be on the planet when the aliens reached orbit. Admiral Kyo-sung looked at the tactical display with growing worry. The human naval forces in the Kepler sector numbered only 28 ships, and most of them were old patrol vessels and light cruisers that had been built decades ago. They stood no chance against the massive alien war machine heading their way. Commander Taeho from the alien fleet sent a broadcast message to all human forces in the system, demanding immediate surrender. The message was full of threats about what would happen to any humans who resisted the coming invasion. He promised that quick surrender would mean only slavery instead of complete destruction. But Admiral Dong-woo had received different orders from Earth Command just hours before. The message was short, but it carried authorization codes that only a few people in the entire galaxy knew about. The orders told him to prepare for Operation Phantom Dawn and to trust that help was coming from an unexpected source. Captain Jae-min gathered his bridge crew to explain their new mission. They would form a defensive line around New Seoul and hold their position. No matter what happened, his crew looked scared because they all knew the odds were hopeless, but they were ready to fight for their families and friends on the planet below. The alien commanders were confident about their overwhelming advantage. In numbers and firepower, General Wu Jin commanded the largest dreadnought in the fleet, a ship so big it had its own manufacturing facilities and could carry thousands of fighter craft. His vessel alone had more weapons than the entire human defense force. From his flagship, Admiral Kyosun sent a coded transmission to coordinates that officially did not exist anywhere in human records. The message contained only 3 words, but they carried the weight of humanity's secret hopes and fears. The words were "Phantom is authorized," and they would change everything somewhere. In the darkness between stars, ancient systems began to wake up. Power flowed through conduits that had been dormant for years, and computer networks that few humans knew existed started running final system checks. The most advanced piece of technology humanity had ever created was preparing to reveal itself to the galaxy. Captain Haijin received orders to evacuate the remaining civilians from New Seoul's major cities. Her transport ships worked around the clock, loading families and their possessions, but there was not enough time to save everyone. The alien fleet was moving faster than expected and would arrive before the evacuation could be completed. The enemy battle plan was simple and brutal. They would destroy the human fleet in a direct assault, then move into orbit around New Seoul and bombard the planet until all resistance ended. The aliens wanted to send a message to every human world that fighting back was useless and would only lead to more suffering. Admiral Hyunsu watched the enemy approach on his command ship's main screen. The alien vessels moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of metal insects coming to devour everything in their path. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields, and their weapon ports glowed with barely contained power. Captain Yoonji tried to calculate how long the human fleet could hold out against such overwhelming odds. Her computer models showed that even with perfect tactics and maximum effort, the defense would collapse within 30 minutes of the first enemy salvo. The aliens had too many ships and too much firepower, but deep in classified military archives on Earth, Project Phantom had been working toward this moment for over 20 years. Human scientists had studied captured alien technology and pushed the boundaries of physics to create something that would surprise their enemies. The Phantom warship was not just a legend or a psychological weapon. Commander Jinho monitored enemy communications as the alien fleet approached. He could hear the confidence in their voices as they discussed how to divide human territory after the conquest. Their leaders were already arguing about which empire would get the richest planets and the most valuable resources. The aliens had no idea. They were flying into the most carefully planned trap in military history. Every detail had been calculated to draw them into the perfect position where the Phantom could strike with maximum effectiveness. The human fleet's apparent weakness was actually bait to make the enemy overconfident. Captain Yujin received final orders from Fleet Command telling her to maintain position until the last possible moment. Her crew was nervous but ready to fight, knowing that their sacrifice might buy time for the secret weapon to activate. The Phantom needed the enemy fleet to be in exactly the right place when it revealed itself. General Seoko led the advance guard of the alien armada, confident that victory was assured within hours. His intelligence reports showed that humans had primitive weapons and weak shields that could not stand against superior alien technology. What he did not know was that those reports were completely wrong. The countdown to battle had begun, and both sides prepared for what they thought would be a one-sided massacre. The aliens expected easy victory, while the humans hoped desperately that their secret weapon would work as designed. Neither side fully understood what was about to happen in the empty space around New Seoul. Admiral Dongwu made his final preparations, knowing that everything depended on perfect timing. The Phantom had to strike at exactly the right moment when the alien fleet was committed to the attack and could not escape. If the timing was wrong, humanity would face total defeat and the end of their civilization. As the alien fleet moved into weapon range, the stage was set for a battle that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Phantom warship waited in its dimensional hiding place, counting down the seconds until it would emerge and show the universe that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The alien armada dropped out of hyperspace in a formation so perfect it looked like a work of art. 217 warships appeared in normal space around New Seoul, their hulls gleaming with energy shields and weapon systems that could destroy entire star systems. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying as the massive fleet blocked out the stars behind them. Admiral Hyunsu watched from his command ship as the enemy vessels moved into attack position. The largest alien dreadnoughts were bigger than human space stations with weapons that glowed like captured pieces of the sun. Each ship carried enough firepower to glass an entire planet and turn it into a ball of molten rock floating in the void. The human defenders scrambled to form their pathetic defensive line, knowing they were completely outmatched. Captain Jae-min gripped his command chair as enemy targeting systems locked onto his vessel. The bridge around him was filled with the quiet sounds of his crew working at their stations, trying to coordinate the final evacuation of civilians from the planet below. General Wu Jin broadcast his surrender demands across all frequencies, giving the humans one last chance to avoid complete annihilation. His voice was calm and confident as he explained that resistance was useless and would only lead to unnecessary death. The alien fleet had enough weapons to sterilize every human world in the galaxy. Captain So Young felt sweat on her forehead as she watched the tactical display. The enemy ships were moving into optimal firing position, and her sensors showed massive energy buildups in their weapon systems. In just a few minutes, the aliens would open fire, and the human fleet would be vaporized in seconds. But then something impossible happened. Space itself began to shimmer and bend near the alien fleet's left flank. The stars in that area seemed to twist and dance as if reality was being warped by forces beyond understanding. Gravity sensors went crazy, detecting massive distortions that should not exist in empty. Space Commander Taeho ordered his ships to investigate the strange readings, but before they could react, the Phantom materialized from the void like a nightmare made real. The ship that emerged from its dimensional hiding place was larger than anything humans had ever built before, and its hull seemed to absorb light. Instead of reflecting it, the Phantom warship defied every known law of physics and engineering. Its surface was covered with materials that looked like liquid darkness, and strange energies danced along its edges like captured lightning. Weapon ports that glowed with barely contained power lined the massive hull, and the entire ship seemed to bend space around itself. Admiral Kyo-sung stared in amazement at the vessel that had been humanity's most closely guarded secret for over 20 years. The Phantom was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, a perfect fusion of human engineering and technology. Stolen from dozens of different alien civilizations, its very existence proved that humans were far more advanced than anyone had imagined. The alien commanders tried to understand what they were seeing, but their sensors could barely track the mysterious vessel. The Phantom stealth systems made it appear to fade in and out of reality like a ghost ship sailing between dimensions. Its energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. Captain Hyjin watched as the Phantom took position between the human fleet and the alien armada. The massive vessel moved with impossible grace, its advanced propulsion systems allowing it to change direction and speed in ways that should have torn any normal ship apart. Every movement was calculated and purposeful, like a predator stalking its prey. General Seoko tried to maintain his confidence, but something about the Phantom made his skin crawl. The ship radiated an aura of barely contained power that seemed to whisper of technologies beyond his understanding. His tactical officers were frantically trying to analyze the vessel's capabilities, but their computers could not process what they were seeing. The Phantom opened communication channels to all ships in the area, both human and alien. The voice that emerged was calm and mechanical, like an artificial intelligence speaking through speakers made of pure darkness. You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawal from this system, it said. Any vessel that remains will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Commander Jinho felt his heart racing as he realized what was about to happen. The aliens had dismissed the Phantom stories as human propaganda, but now they faced the reality of a weapon system beyond their wildest nightmares. The legendary ghost ship was real, and it was ready to demonstrate why the stories had spread across the galaxy. The alien fleet tried to respond with threats and demands, but the Phantom remained silent as the countdown reached 0. Captain Yunji held her breath as the moment of truth arrived. The mysterious vessel began to glow with energies that hurt to look at directly, and space around it started to ripple like water disturbed by a throne. Stone Admiral Hyunsu knew he was about to witness something that would change the course of galactic history. The Phantom represented decades of secret research and development that had pushed human technology far beyond what their enemies believed possible. The ghost ship was humanity's answer to every threat and insult they had endured. The 10 seconds passed in complete silence as both fleets waited to see what would happen next. The Phantom floated motionless in space like a dark angel of death preparing to deliver judgment on those who had threatened innocent human lives. Its weapon systems, charged with power that seemed to come from the heart of a dying Star Captain Yujin watched her sensor displays as energy readings from the Phantom climbed beyond anything her instruments could measure. The mysterious vessel was preparing to demonstrate capabilities that would shatter every assumption about human military technology and show the galaxy that humanity was not the weak prey species their enemies believed them to. Beatty alien commanders finally understood that they faced something far beyond their ability to comprehend or defeat, but it was too late to escape. The Phantom had positioned itself perfectly to cut off their retreat routes, and its weapons were already targeting their most important vessels. The ghost ship was about to show them what real power looked like. In the final moment before the Phantom opened fire, Admiral Dongwu realized that everything was about to change. The balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever, and humanity would no longer be seen as a minor species struggling to survive. The Phantom warship was about to announce that humans were a force to be feared and respected. The silence stretched for one more heartbeat as the Phantom's weapons reached full charge. Then the ghost ship unleashed hell itself upon the alien fleet, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Commander Jin-Ho watched in stunned silence as the Phantom warship opened fire with weapons that seemed to tear holes in the fabric of space itself. The first salvo struck the alien flagship with such devastating force that the massive dreadnought simply ceased to exist, leaving nothing but expanding clouds of superheated plasma where it had been just moments before. The Phantom's main cannon fired beams of pure energy that looked like captured pieces of a dying star. The weapon created distortions in space-time that bent light around them, making the attack appear to come from impossible angles. The alien flagship never had a chance to raise its shields or return fire before it was completely vaporized. General Wu Jin's command ship was the first to die, and with it went the alien fleet's entire command structure. The explosion was so massive that it created a shockwave that sent smaller vessels tumbling through space. Like leaves caught in a hurricane, several alien cruisers were destroyed just by the energy released when their flagship was annihilated. The Phantom moved through space with grace that seemed to mock the laws of physics. Its hull rippled with dark energies as secondary weapon systems came online. Each gun port glowed with barely contained power, and the entire ship seemed to pulse with life like some giant predator awakening from a long sleep. Captain Haijin could not believe the readings on her sensors as the Phantom continued its assault. The mysterious vessel fired weapons that created miniature black holes which consumed everything they touched. Other guns shot beams of pure force that passed through enemy shields as if they were not even there. The alien fleet tried desperately to respond, but their weapons seemed pathetically weak against the Phantom's defenses. Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids simply disappeared into the ship's hull as if absorbed by some hungry darkness. Missiles and projectiles were caught in gravitational fields and crushed to atoms before they could reach their target. Admiral Hyun-Soo watched as the Phantom demonstrated technologies that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. The ship moved without any visible engines, creating its own gravitational fields to pull itself through space. Its hull seemed to be made of materials that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The second wave of Phantom fire targeted the alien fleet's heavy cruisers. Each shot was precisely aimed to maximize destruction while avoiding the human defenders who watched in awe from their positions. The mysterious vessel's targeting systems seemed to predict enemy movements before they happened. Commander Taeho tried to coordinate a counterattack, but his orders were lost in the chaos of battleships that had seemed invincible just minutes before now fled in terror as the Phantom methodically destroyed everything in its path. The alien formation began to break apart as panic spread through their ranks. Captain So Young stared at her tactical display as entire squadrons of enemy vessels were eliminated with surgical precision. The Phantom's weapons operated on principles that violated everything she knew about physics each shot created. Localized distortions that tore enemy ships apart at the molecular level. The Phantom launched smaller craft from internal bays, and these escort vessels were equally impossible and equally deadly. They moved like ghosts through the enemy formation, striking vital systems with pinpoint accuracy before vanishing back into whatever dimension they called home. Admiral Kyoseung realized he was witnessing the end of an era. The alien coalition's confidence had been built on their assumption of technological superiority, but humanity had just proven that assumption was catastrophically wrong. The Phantom represented a quantum leap in military capability that would reshape galactic politics forever. General Seoko watched his fleet disintegrate around him as the Phantom continued its relentless assault. Ships that had served in 100 battles were reduced to scrap metal in seconds by weapons that seemed to operate outside the normal laws of reality. He finally understood why the Phantom stories had spread so quickly through alien space. The Phantom's escort fighters moved through the battle zone like deadly spirits appearing from nowhere to destroy key targets before disappearing again. Their weapons created explosions that looked like tiny stars being born and dying in the space of heartbeats. Each fighter seemed to carry the firepower of a full-sized warship. Captain Jae-min tried to keep track of the battle, but events were moving too fast for normal comprehension. The Phantom and its escort craft were systematically dismantling one of the largest fleets ever assembled in galactic history, making it look easy. The alien vessels that had seemed so threatening just minutes before were now nothing but burning debris. The Phantom's hull rippled with energy patterns that hurt to look at. Directly strange symbols appeared and disappeared on its surface, as if the ship was covered in living tattoos that told the story of its impossible capabilities. The entire vessel seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. Captain Unji watched enemy ships try desperately to escape, but the Phantom was already moving to cut off their retreat routes. The mysterious vessel's speed and maneuverability made it impossible for the slower alien vessels to outrun their fate. Every attempted escape was anticipated and blocked. The alien commanders who were still alive began broadcasting surrender offers, but the Phantom ignored their pleas. The ghost ship had been given its orders, and it would carry them out with mechanical precision. No alien vessel that had participated in the attack on human space would be allowed to escape. Admiral Dongwoo felt a mixture of pride and fear as he watched humanity's secret weapon demonstrate its terrible power. The Phantom was everything the scientists had promised, and more, but its capabilities were so far beyond normal understanding that even he found it hard to believe what he was seeing. The battle that was supposed to be humanity's final defeat had become the alien fleet's worst nightmare. The Phantom moved through their formation like death itself, destroying everything it touched with weapons that seemed to channel the fundamental forces of the universe. The ghost ship was proving that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. As the Phantom continued its assault, the remaining alien vessels realized that resistance was not just futile but impossible. They faced something that operated on principles beyond their understanding, using technologies that made their most advanced weapons look like primitive clubs. The massacre continued as the Phantom methodically eliminated every alien vessel that dared to remain in the system. The ghost ship had awakened from its long sleep, and it would not rest until every threat to humanity had been removed from existence. General Seoko of the Andorian Republic tried desperately to coordinate a retreat, but the Phantom was already moving to cut off every possible escape route. The alien warship's advanced sensors seemed to predict tactical decisions before they were even made, positioning itself to deliver maximum damage while preventing any organized response from the increasingly desperate enemy fleet. The Phantom moved through space like a dark god of war, its hull rippling with energies that made reality itself seem unstable around it. Every movement was calculated and precise, as if the ship was following a battle plan that had been written before the fight even began. The alien commanders realized they were not fighting a vessel but facing pure death in mechanical form. Captain Yu-jin watched from her observation deck as entire squadrons of alien vessels were systematically destroyed with surgical precision. The Phantom's main weapons seemed to operate on principles that violated everything She knew about physics creating localized distortions in spacetime that tore enemy ships apart at levels smaller than atoms. The few alien vessels that managed to break away from the main engagement found themselves pursued by the Phantom's escort. Fighters, these smaller craft seemed to phase in and out of normal space, appearing from nowhere to strike vital systems, before vanishing back into whatever dimension they called home. Their weapons created explosions that looked like tiny universes. Being born and destroyed, Admiral Insu realized he was witnessing something that would be remembered for thousands of years. The Phantom warship represented humanity's true technological capabilities hidden for decades while their enemies assumed they were fighting a primitive species. The ghost ship was proving that assumption wrong in the most violent way possible. Commander Tejo's surviving vessels tried to form a defensive formation, but the Phantom's escort craft moved through their ranks like deadly spirits. The small fighters ignored enemy shields and armor, striking directly at critical systems with weapons that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Phantom itself continued its relentless advance through the alien fleet, its massive hull absorbing enemy fire like a black hole consuming light. Plasma cannons that could melt through the strongest known materials simply disappeared into the ship's surface without leaving so much as a scorch mark. Captain Jin tried to understand how the Phantom's weapons worked, but her sensors could barely track the energy patterns. The ship fired beams that seemed to exist outside normal spacetime, creating tears in reality that swallowed everything they touched. Some weapons appeared to reverse the flow of time itself around their targets. General Wu Jin's second in command tried to rally the remaining alien forces, but panic had taken hold of the fleet. Ships that had fought together for years were now fleeing in different directions as their crews realized they faced something beyond their ability to comprehend or defeat. The Phantom launched additional waves of escort fighters from bays that seemed larger inside than the ship's hull should allow. Each fighter carried enough firepower to destroy a normal warship, and they moved with coordination that suggested they shared a single consciousness. Admiral Heinsu watched as the Phantom demonstrated weapon systems that operated on completely unknown principles. Some guns fired projectiles that appeared to travel backwards through time, hitting their targets before they were fired. Other weapons created gravity wells that crushed enemy vessels into points of infinite density. Captain So Young monitored the communications channels as alien commanders screamed orders that would never be followed. The enemy fleet's command structure had completely broken down, and individual ships were making desperate attempts to escape without any coordination or planning. The Phantom seemed to anticipate every move the aliens made, as if it could read their thoughts before they formed them. Vessels that tried to hide behind debris were found and destroyed. Ships that attempted complex evasive maneuvers were caught and eliminated before they could complete their turns. Commander Jinho realized that the Phantom was not just a warship, but something far more advanced. Its artificial intelligence seemed to operate on levels of consciousness that normal minds could not grasp, making tactical decisions that incorporated variables no organic brain could process. The escort fighters moved through the battle zone like a school of mechanical sharks, each one perfectly coordinated with all the others. They struck at enemy weak points with precision that suggested they had complete knowledge of every alien ship design ever created. Captain Jamin watched as the Phantom's hull began to glow with new patterns of energy. The ship was preparing to demonstrate even more advanced capabilities, as if everything they had seen so far was just the beginning of its true power. The remaining alien vessels tried desperately to send distress signals to other fleets, but the Phantom's electronic warfare systems jammed every transmission. The ghost ship wanted to ensure that no warning of its capabilities would reach the rest of the alien coalition. Admiral Kyosung felt both pride and terror as he watched humanity's ultimate weapon in action. The Phantom was everything the secret project had promised, but its power was so far beyond normal understanding that even he wondered if humans had created something they might not be able to control. The Phantom's weapons began firing in patterns too complex for organic minds to follow, creating a web of destruction that trapped the remaining alien ships in an inescapable cage of death. Some vessels were destroyed instantly, while others were left crippled and helpless, waiting for the final Below, Captain Yunji tried to count how many enemy ships remained, but the numbers changed too. Quickly, as the Phantom and its escorts continued their methodical elimination of every threat, the alien fleet that had seemed so massive and powerful just hours before was now reduced to scattered remnants fleeing in terror. The Phantom moved through the debris field of its own creation like death walking among the ruins of the living. Its sensors sought out every remaining enemy vessel, no matter how small or damaged, ensuring that nothing would escape to carry word of what had happened. General Silko watched his flagship systems fail one by one as Phantom fighter craft systematically destroyed every critical component his crew was abandoning their posts as the ship began to break apart under the assault of weapons that operated beyond the laws of physics. Phantom began to slow its advance as the last organized resistance collapsed. The ghost ship had accomplished its mission of demonstrating humanity's true power. But the lesson had come at a cost that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. As the battle reached its final phase, Admiral Dongwu realized that everything had changed forever. The Phantom had not just won a military victory, but had announced to the entire galaxy that humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated or threatened. The few alien survivors who managed to escape would carry stories of the Phantom back to their homeworlds, but no one would believe them until it was too late. The ghost ship had become legend and reality at the same time, ensuring that humanity's enemies would never again assume they were fighting a primitive species. In the aftermath of the battle, only 17 alien vessels managed to escape from the original fleet of over 200 warships. Captain Butler supervised the rescue operations as human ships moved carefully through the massive debris field, searching for survivors and gathering intelligence from the smoking wreckage that floated in space. Like a graveyard of broken dreams, the Phantom had vanished as mysteriously as it appeared, leaving behind only questions and the scattered remains of what had once been the galaxy's most feared armada. The ghost ship had completed its mission and returned to whatever dimensional hiding place it called home, but its message was clear to everyone who witnessed the battle. Admiral Kyosung stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the cleanup operations and trying to process what had just happened. The Phantom warship represented decades of secret human research and development that had pushed technology far beyond what anyone thought possible. The ghost ship had proven that humanity was not the weak species their enemies believed them to be. News of the Phantom's existence spread through the galactic community like wildfire, carried by the terrified survivors who had witnessed its impossible capabilities. Every alien government received reports of a human warship that could bend space-time and destroy entire fleets with weapons that operated outside known physics. Ambassador Seung-min found himself fielding desperate calls from the same alien leaders who had dismissed humanity's warnings just days before. Suddenly, every major power wanted to negotiate peace treaties and establish diplomatic relations to avoid becoming the Phantom's next target. The balance of power had shifted overnight, and everyone knew it. Captain Haijin read the intelligence reports that were flooding in from across the galaxy. The Phantom's demonstration had caused panic in alien military commands as they realized their assumptions about human technology were completely wrong. Fleet movements that had been planned for months were suddenly canceled as alien admirals refused to risk facing the ghost ship. The Drachnary Empire, which had been preparing for a massive invasion of human space, immediately began withdrawing their forces and requesting emergency peace talks. Their military analysts had studied the battle recordings and concluded that resistance against the Phantom was not just futile, but impossible. Commander Taeho, who had survived the battle by being aboard one of the few ships that escaped, was now giving testimony to alien intelligence services. His reports described weapons that seemed to violate the fundamental laws of physics and a ship that moved through space as if it owned the very fabric of reality itself. But the Phantom's message was clear to everyone who heard the stories. Humanity would no longer be underestimated or bullied by superior numbers. The ghost ship had demonstrated that humans possessed technology far beyond what their enemies had imagined and were willing to use it to protect their people. Admiral Kyungsoo addressed the Galactic Council from his new position of strength, offering peace to those who sought it but promising Swift retribution to any who threatened human lives. The age of humanity as a minor player in galactic politics was officially over, and a new chapter in interstellar relations had begun. The Phantom had done more than win a single battle. It had fundamentally changed how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity. The ghost ship had proven that humans were not primitive creatures struggling to survive, but a highly advanced civilization that had been hiding their true capabilities for decades. Captain So Young reviewed the diplomatic messages that were arriving hourly from alien governments. The same species that had been planning to divide human territory among themselves were now offering trade agreements and mutual defense. Pax the Phantom had made humanity a power that no one dared to ignore. The survivors of the battle carried stories back to their homeworlds, but many of their own people found the reports hard to believe. The Phantom's capabilities seemed so far beyond normal technology that some alien scientists dismissed the accounts as exaggerated or fabricated by traumatized witnesses. General Seoko, who had commanded the alien advance guard, was interrogated by his own intelligence services for weeks. As they tried to understand what had happened, his descriptions of the Phantom warship and its escort fighters sounded like science fiction even to experts in advanced military technology, but the evidence was undeniable. Sensor recordings from the surviving alien ships showed weapon signatures that had never been seen before and energy patterns that violated every known law of physics. The Phantom was real, and it had demonstrated capabilities that would give nightmares to alien military planners for generations. Captain Jamin found his small patrol vessel suddenly treated with respect by alien ships that encountered him in space. The Phantom's reputation had spread so quickly that any vessel bearing human markings was now given a wide berth by potential enemies who feared drawing the ghost ship's attention. The Phantom warship had become a legend that was also a reality, a story that parents would tell their children to keep them from threatening humanity. The ghost ship existed somewhere in the darkness between stars, waiting to defend its creators against any threat that dared to challenge the new order it had created. Admiral Dongwu realized that the Phantom had achieved something more valuable than military victory. It had bought humanity respect and fear from species that had previously seen them as easy prey. The ghost ship had announced to the galaxy that humans were a force to be reckoned with. The alien coalition that had formed to destroy humanity quickly dissolved as each member species rushed to make separate peace with the humans. Fear of the Phantom had overcome years of cooperation and mutual defense agreements, as no one wanted to risk being associated with humanity's enemies. Captain Yunji watched as alien trade ships began arriving at human ports carrying offers of technology exchange and economic cooperation. The same species that had been planning invasion were now eager to become business partners, hoping that friendship would protect them from the Phantom's wrath. Commander Jinho monitored communications across the galaxy and noted how often the Phantom was mentioned in alien military discussions. Fleet commanders were requiring special authorization to enter human space, and many were refusing missions that might bring them into contact with the ghost ship. The Phantom had created a bubble of safety around human civilization that extended far beyond what their conventional military forces could have achieved. The ghost ship's reputation was worth more than 1,000 normal warships in terms of deterring potential threats. As Captain Hyojin looked out at the stars from her command bridge, she knew that everything had changed forever. The Phantom warship had elevated humanity from a struggling species to a major galactic power in the span of a single battle. The ghost ship had proven that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The new galactic order had begun with humanity at its center, protected by a legend that was also a promise of destruction for anyone who threatened human lives. The Phantom waited in the darkness, ready to emerge whenever its people needed protection, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson it had taught.